speaking with me, Tarun Nangia, Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramana, then Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, as also various other judges of the Supreme Court have time and again said that there is sometimes a concerted plan to attack judges on social media, make slanderous comments, and it looks like a planned campaign on many occasions. Justice N.V. Ramana also said that we should refrain from such tendencies. Judges cannot be attacked. It is in a way an attempt to intimidate, influence also to some extent. Also, if you could see, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta made a very telling comment that leading up to a certain judgment in the Supreme Court, you see that this whole campaign starts before any judgment has to be delivered. And that is a very worrying prospect. We're going to discuss all of this today because all these eminent individuals have raised this issue. This is of some concern to us. Let us, I'll introduce you to my panel today. May I welcome Justice Iqbal Ahmed Ansari. He served as the Chief Justice of the Patna High Court. Welcome and good to see you again, sir. May I welcome Justice Rajiv Sahai Endlaw, and good to see you again. And as we all know, sir has served as a judge at the Delhi High Court. May I welcome Senior Advocate Saurabh Kirpal. He practices at the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court of India and is a well-known arbitrator. Good to see you again. May I welcome Meghna Mishra. She is senior partner with Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading litigation law firms. May I welcome Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari. Abhimanyu Bhandari is an advocate at the Supreme Court of India and at the Delhi High Court and has worked previously in London and New York. Welcome, Mr. Bhandari, and good to see you again. Well, at the outset, may I request Justice Ansari in about a minute to share his views on this topic, and then we go to Justice Endlaw for his comments, and then I open the panel after that because this concerns the judges. They have both served on the other side and they are best suited to answer what kind of feelings goes through their mind when they see these kind of coordinated attacks and campaigns. Justice Ansari, your opening comment.
You see, Mr. Tarun, the comments were concertedly made on the social media against the judge. And the judge obviously cannot react and rebounds. It rattles the judge and creates a very big tension, not only in the professional but personal life of the judge. So Justice Ramana's remarks and his a kind of admonition is very significant, and we have to ensure that the judges are not attacked in concerted manner on the social media and thereby create a lot of mental tension and pressure to them, particularly because they are helpless in the sense that they can't react, they can't say it.
Point well taken. I'll go to Justice Endlaw for his opening comment.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. We have a concept of open courtroom. That is, anybody can walk into the courtroom, a member of the public, and see what is happening. And there has always been much interest in the court proceedings. I can remind everybody from the Nanavati proceedings days when it was a case which had generated so much interest in the public because a naval officer was was charged with murder of his wife and of another person. So there is always a lot of interest. What has happened now, what has changed is that earlier very few persons would go and watch the court proceedings. Today, with the media expanding its scope and generally, in my view, the courts have become a source of entertainment. If you see any newspaper of today, we have 3 pages full of court news and 1 page of entertainment news. So there is a lot of, because of awareness or whatever one may say, there is a lot of interest how the courts are behaving and a lot of interesting matters are coming before the court. But the reporting somehow is happening only of what transpires in the court. In the course of hearing of a matter, the judge may ask several questions to clear his doubts or to give an opportunity or to elicit a point of view. But it is that which is being reported, and from that people start making conjectures. The ultimate orders or judgments, if you will analyze, are rarely reported or reported in a very narrow space in the media. What we are hearing today is only that attributing that how the judge is behaving, how he is making up his mind, how he is wrong. This is one aspect of it. Now, the concept also has been that a judgment or an order is open to criticism, but a judge is not. Because when you start attributing motives to a judge, that the order has followed for this reason or for that reason, then that is, you lead to a situation where you have so-called defamed a person without that person having any opportunity of responding to it. There has often been a debate I can speak for the Delhi High Court, whether there should be a department which should be responding to the various news which comes. But till now, that has not been the case. But that feeling is always there that there should be a mechanism or forum through which the courts can respond to what is being reported. Thank you.
Point well taken. Now, I'm going to read two comments. One made by Justice N.V. Ramana, the Chief Justice of India. The other made by Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta. And the following three panelists, Senior Advocate Saurabh Kirpal, Meghna Mishra, and Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari, can reflect on that while answering the questions. Point number one, I'm reading an excerpt. Justice Ramana said that there is a trend to sermonize about judgments and also villainize judges. That needs to be checked. And he has not said this once, he has said this on many occasions in the past 7-8 months. So it's not something which is an offhand comment made one. He means it when he says it 4-5 times and he's for it. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta said, a pattern has emerged whereby articles and social media posts appear a couple of days leading to an important hearing in the Supreme Court, and it is a bit to influence opinion outside the court and the issue at stake. And he asked the Supreme Court by saying that your lordship should consider this. So both are worried. I mean, the Solicitor General as well as the Chief Justice. I would request Senior Advocate Saurabh Kirpal to give his opinion.
Look, I think Justice Enlaw was right when he said that judgments are always open to criticism. The problem is when on social media, with a cloak of anonymity, you start making comments. You see, so why are we so focused today on social media as opposed to traditional media? This interest in the judiciary has always been there because of the nature of function they perform. It is such an expansive jurisdiction that is been taken by our courts, expanded into so many different areas, which the constitution makers probably did not envisage. But the fact is today, judges are making a very important policy contribution to this country. And hence, those judgments will be open to criticism. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, however, that rather than having a nuanced, intelligent discussion in regular print or electronic media, where there is an editor sitting who will assess as to what is being said is correct or not, where there is accountability because the name of the author will appear next to that particular article. We now have a problem on social media that there is a shoot and scoop that happens. Any anonymous Twitter handle can come, or any other anonymous social media personality can come, make all kinds of outrageous allegations to buttress their own ideological beliefs. And this can be both for or against a particular judgment. So, and that inevitably will cast an impact on a judge. How do you expect someone to remove themselves from the society that they live in? The problem for me is particularly social media, Tarun. It's not just the media. Social media is its own kind of creature where there are no controls. And therefore, even if you want to, as Justice Enlaw said, have a system of where you can actually go and as a court, maybe the registrar of the court can come out and say something that this is right or this is wrong. In the case of a social media, who will you address that to? because there's some faceless person sitting behind a Twitter handle and making a comment. So this is a big problem we have with social media, I think.
Your point with regards to faceless people commenting en masse is a very valid one, which needs to be looked into. I'll go to Meghna Mishra, senior partner, Karanjawala and Company, for a comment.
So just to pick up, I think a very, very good point has been raised by Justice Enlaw, and that's the distinction. And as Saurabh also rightly pointed out, that criticism of the judgment may be something that may be protected, and it can be discussed, but you cannot have personal attacks on the judge, because this then becomes attack on the institution itself. It is not going to be feasible and possible for judges to continue to work if one stray comment is picked up and then it just becomes, it's sensationalized. And by the very nature of social media, within hours, it then just the entire issue. So, and as Justice Enlaw very rightly said, one stray comment, one question is picked up completely out of context. And this is happening in ongoing matters. So how is the judge ever going to be able to apply his mind, rather than, applying himself on the legal aspects? Now, the worry is now what is happening in the social media, and the judges are also living, in the society. They have to, and they have no ability to react to any of this. So I don't know, maybe time has come for certain rules, regulations to come in, at least as far as social media is concerned, where attacks on the judges need to stop. Because as far as I can see, if this continues, it will not be possible for judges to continue to do the good work that they are doing.
Point very well taken. I'll go to Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari. Before you practicing in India, I think for a long time now, before you worked in London and New York, can you juxtapose media there and social media there with what happens in India? And then also come back to comments made by Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramana, and Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, and put the whole thing in perspective for us.
I think, Tarun, we've seen a dramatic shift in the way people can express their opinions. Before, we used to have newspapers and articles. There, an editor actually goes through and removes any material which is extraneous, any material which is offensive. So what used to come out in a publication of any quality would be that at least someone used to be there to filter it out. But now we live in a world where one tweet can go viral. And the tweet made by the person, as Mr. Kirpal said, could be a faceless person. But that tweet may just go completely viral. And I'll give you an example, not any specific example. But for example, when people connect someone as a relative of some judge, just because surnames are similar, and say, oh, so-and-so, and it goes viral in minutes. And there is no one there to actually authenticate whether actually this is correct or wrong. I think the problem is very clear. And, some judges have said across common law jurisdictions in the UK, even in India, some very senior judges have said that our shoulders are broad enough to bear these things. But I think the way social media has taken over all our lives, and the fact that we all are hooked onto social media, and social media is instantaneous, I think what Justice Enlaw said is something we need to think seriously about. We need to think whether high courts and every high court should have a department which should look into this. And whenever there is a tweet or there is a social media post with something offensive about concerning any judge, and I'm not only talking about high court judges, but also the judges in the trial courts, if there's anything offensive, then immediately the forum which is publishing that tweet is informed and that is taken down upon. We must remember that the landmark decision of Shreya Singhal, which abolished 66A, and it did it rightly, also differentiated between print media and social media by saying that in social media, and there's a paragraph of the Supreme Court judgment, that the court themselves understood and acknowledged that social media is something where people have a right to just enter at any time without actually costing them as much as it would cost them to go and publish an article or publish a kind of an announcement or notice it. So I think the way forward should be, we all know the problem and we know that, something needs to be done about it. The question is, what needs to be done about it? Do we need a new law? I don't think so. I think what we need is that the High Court administrative departments in various parts of the country should now have a department which looks into this and monitors that if there is something in the social media attacking a judge in a venomous way, in a malicious way, then that should be reported immediately and taken down upon. Because I think the way we can really encourage this is, if someone puts a tweet and then you file a petition in a court to say, oh, this tweet is wrong, that creates more news. And that's actually more counterproductive, because then you're actually, creating a big tamasha, sorry to use the word, that, oh, now he's filed a PIL. I remember, I've attended one or two these PILs. I have never seen a court as jam-packed as, when one of these issues are coming up in the court for hearing. So according to me, there should be a department in the High Court. They should communicate directly. There's enough powers under the Information Technology Act. They should directly communicate with the authorities and get it out for once and for all, the minute they see that any of these tweets appear.
Point well taken, Mr. Abhimanyu Bhandari. I'll go to Justice Ansari on this point. I read out the comment made by Justice Ramanna and Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta. There is a pattern that if there is a slanderous comment made, it takes money to get it trolled, which means money is to be paid to people to make that point. And that is why suddenly a lot of thousands of accounts which are prominently called bots, which are fake accounts, try to build something into a trend, which means anybody who opens the social media reads about it. So basically, money is being spent to slander some people who occupy a judicial officer's post. And that is, in a sense, a strategy or a stratagem to influence the court, to create pressure. Do you think this has to be looked at much more seriously than it has been even all these days?
Earlier, it was not so seriously taken because their matters were reported once in a while.
Yes.
But now it has become endemic. And the problem is that the judge is defenseless, as I said.
Yes.
And the social media can be, as just Mr. Kripal has said, he can be a person with a faceless person. So when attacked by such persons, and it can be in the form of a, the normal reaction of the judge in the court with regard to a matter, a query made, anything made, and that is given a trend. And many times, designedly, pressure is put on the judge to drive him to deliver a kind of a judgment or an order, or not to deliver a kind of a judgment or order which he is otherwise likely to do. That is subversion of justice. That is something which we have to take it very seriously. Because if the judge is not free to deliver the judgment or order that he or she wants, that kind of a situation has to be avoided. And for that necessary steps, of course, he has suggested that whether some department of the High Court should take into consideration the comments made in the social media. I think the involvement would be the same, whether the judge directly rebuts or somebody on his behalf rebuts. Okay. Because the rebuttal or any comment from the end of the judge is ultimately on the on behalf of the judge. So it reflects the judge itself. That is what something we have to perhaps take steps to avoid.
Point well taken. I'll go to Justice Endlaw. So we have seen this whole pattern. Some people make outright threats to a judge. Of course, they are pulled up. They are prosecuted under law. And we have seen recently also this has happened. The second is a concerted campaign to slander a judge where money is spent. Sometimes they simply call judges names without substantiating why they are calling them names, which means it is an act of defamation in that sense. Do you think that we have to come up with a solution? Abhimanyu pointed out there could be a department. Do you think this has to be looked at carefully? Because this, if Justice Ramanna has spoken about it, say about on 4 or 5 occasions, this must be something that is at the back of his mind.
There are several things which have been debated over the years, but which, for the sake of not interfering with the freedom of speech, have not been interpreted, have not been implemented, or not been codified. One is, what has been debated for a long time, at least since the time I was there, to have a rule that whenever there is a reporting about the court, the judge will not be named. It will only be that the civil court or the district court said this, or the high court said this, or the Supreme Court. Because whatever the judge is speaking for the court. So that will shield individual names or perceptions being created about a particular judge taking a particular view. Another thing which has been debated, which has also not been implemented, is to have some criteria, because you will see most of it is happening because of the wide reportage in the media of what is happening in the court. We have just made the court very open. So most of the time what I saw was there are youngsters, they may not even have a degree in law or any knowledge in law, who are reporting, who are just pressing on their phone buttons when the hearing is still going on for the sake of making it first, that we reported it first. So what I feel is that what they understand about the happening in the court is not the true reflection of what has happened in the court, because they can't afford to wait till the evening to get a copy of the order or what has transpired or what the judge has said. So what is going out is something which is on the basis of an untrained mind, or who is not skilled to appreciate the proceeding in the court. These were two of the suggestions. Otherwise, the Supreme Court has said that if in any particular case, the judge who is handling the matter is of the opinion that the reporting is coming in the way of administration of justice, then that very bench or that very court is authorized to issue appropriate orders to the media in that regard. So these are few suggestions.
Point well taken. I'll take this to senior advocate Saurabh Kirpal. We recently had one comment made by Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud. He said that the judges' shoulders are broad enough to bear the barbs made at them. That is one comment. Then there is another comment by the Chief Justice of India, Justice Ramanna, and a worry expressed by Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta. Where do we find a balance between these two ends?
I don't think there's any balance. I think the two statements can coexist very happily. It is certainly a matter of fact that a judge's shoulders are broad enough that they should not take upon themselves to issue notices of contempt in every matter where some allegation is made against them or in a judgment. That, however, does not mean that there is not some insidious effect on the psyche of a judge. Now, there will be judges and there will be judges. There are people who are in the Supreme Court who would be completely unaffected by a comment. Then there will be people who, younger judges in the lower judiciary particularly, who may be very strongly affected by what is said in the social media. You see, you are only thinking of those judges who are seasoned sitting in the higher judiciary. But there are all kinds of judges and they all need protection. Now, if there is a concerted attack, now that happens obviously because one side believes that they are not going to get justice before a particular judge and therefore they start this campaign. Now, if that is permitted, it is so dangerous because what one side does, the other side will also do. And then rather than having a neutral adjudication of a dispute, which is dispassionate before a court, only on the basis of the facts and the evidence and the law before that particular judge, if you have these competing battles which are happening outside the courtroom, which will impact the judge, then regardless of whether you take action for contempt or not, the fact is there is this unwritten effect that happens on the judge. It's too much to
That's a very valid point, Saurabh, because if there is this whole campaign and a flurry whenever you open any social media and a certain kind of comment is being made over and over, the judge would worry that a lot of people will take home an opinion about him, which will outlast his office.
Absolutely, because you are, look, a judge becomes eternal through the judgments they write, right? Lawyers, we come and go. Even the judges will demit office. What will stay behind is the judgments they write. But unfortunately, given the fact that social media is easily accessible and a tweet once out on the internet is there forever. And it's not deleted, the slur on the reputation of a judge that is made by an indiscreet tweet is there permanently, not only for the judge, him or herself, but for their families. Judges, of course, go home as well. They don't go home and sit in a room by themselves and live in ivory castles. They also come from a social milieu. Now, when you attack the judge and the judge's children, grandchildren go to school or college, and their friends react to this particular thing, because that's what children do now. They don't read newspapers, they go to social media. So this has an oversized and a dramatic impact in terms of social media and these campaigns. And I say, parties will always think that they are in the right when they come out with a campaign. And they will honestly, sometimes and often dishonestly, believe that what they're doing is right. You mentioned money, there may be a belief system, whatever. But the point is, if the attempt is to cast pressure upon a judge to deliver a judgment of a particular kind, that is something which is an anathema to our system of rule of law. It is an assault on our constitutional system, which has a system of checks and balances, right? If the judge is looking over his or her shoulder to see what people are saying about him or her, then you are not likely to get neutral justice either which way, right? Either a judge can then get angry and say, okay, I'll teach you a lesson and I'll go one bit further, or they will then be completely restrained themselves from doing what they believe to be the right thing. Now, this is not what we need, right? If you believe there's a problem with a certain judgment, you have other avenues. Attacking someone on social media with an aim to influence what that may happen, that cannot be permitted.
Point very well taken from senior advocate Saurabh Kirpal. I'll go to Meghna Mishra from Karanjawala and Company for a comment.
Taking up where Saurabh left, I think, the psychological damage of a stray tweet can last forever. And you see, apart from the aspects that Saurabh mentioned, I just want to add one more thing, that sometimes these tweets, these bots are used also to build pressure to sometimes recuse, because you have a sense that the judgment is going a certain way. And this is a very evil tool, if I may use the word, because you're just trying to misuse the social media, because it's no longer just about the media trial, which we traditionally spoke of and which Abhimanyu and Saurabh have both mentioned, because that was still handleable. But this is not, because this is just getting sensationalized and out of control. And so you are just wanting that somehow let us build this pressure, let this judge recuse, because, oh my God, this is going against us. And this cycle is going to be unending. So, we need to, of course, protect the system, the judges, and some sort of preventive measures. And what Abhimanyu suggested, those are good suggestions. And I'm hoping that through your channel, that will be taken up further, because the rules do provide that, of course, the Twitter handle itself can't decide. But if those powers are then, delegated to the registrars, and as Saurabh said, the lower judiciary needs to be protected. And, while our Supreme Court judges and High Court judges are more seasoned and have the ability to sort of distinguish between what may be a criticism and what is a misuse of the social media, the lower judiciary, I think, needs the protection more urgently. And that would be something that we are all looking forward to, because the entire institution is at stake at the end of it.
Point well taken from Meghna Mishra from Karanjawala and Company. I'll go to Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari for his observations.
Tarun, my observation is that I'll come back to the point that Justice Enlaw made. And that was a very good point. He said that we live in a world where the court news has exploded. There was a time, Tarun, 3-4 years back, you would not see much of what's happening in the court on the front page. Now you see that, newspapers, media, everything is dominated by court news. And let me tell you, Tarun, judgments are cited less. The offbeat, off the cuff remark that a judge makes is cited more. And, then you have these Instagram posts, and then you have these Twitter posts. You can't escape it. If a judge even sneezes, and he sneezes loudly, it'll be on Twitter, it'll be on the social media. So really, judges who thought they were cloistered nuns are no more cloistered nuns. They are right there, out there. And therefore, they have to deal with this now. Now, we need to ensure that judges are protected, because it's an unfair situation where they can't speak out. I mean, if today Mr. Kirpal puts a tweet saying something about me, I will tweet back with, saying, Mr. Kirpal, you're not correct, or vice versa, whatever. But, Justice Enlaw sitting in Delhi High Court, or Justice Ansari sitting in his High Court, can't do the same. So we need to ensure that we give them the apparatus. And, big kudos to the Honorable Chief Justice to raise this issue, because I think it's a pertinent issue. And I hope that, a systematic infrastructure, which, Meghna ji supports, that should be now brought in various high courts to ensure, as Saurabh said, not only the senior judges who can take it because they have very broad shoulders, but also the young and the new judges who've just stepped in and want to give bold decisions without being influenced or without worrying that they will be attacked in a social media platform.
Thank you so much for those inputs, Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari. So as we saw today, a lot of opinions and a lot of observations came on this issue. It all started after Justice Ramanna, Chief Justice of India, Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, raised this issue. They are all worried because social media is only exploding by the day. And if today's generation sees that a lot of other youngsters are tweeting these kind of things about judges, this only grows, because most people who are on social media are of course not students of law. They don't know the implications of what they write. Many a times only when they face a case, they realize what they have written, because they just become one of the instruments in the army of tweeters that are there on social media. They feel that they're simply tweeting something handed out to them, which is simply like any other tweet that they do 10 times a day. That is what is very important. I would like to thank Justice Iqbal Ansari, served as Chief Justice Patna High Court, Justice Rajiv Saha, End-Law, served as Judge, Delhi High Court, Senior Advocate Saurabh Krikal, practicing at Delhi High Court and Supreme Court of India, Meghna Mishra, Senior Partner, Karanjawala and Company, Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari, practicing at the Supreme Court of India and Delhi High Court. Thank you so much for joining and appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.